Hi, I'm Mia from Freedom Marine, and welcome back to another one of our Axopar how-to series. It's a beautiful winter day in Vancouver, British Columbia, and today Alex is going to talk to us about thru hulls and where they're located on an Axopar.
Okay, thanks for that introduction, Mia. Beautiful day here indeed. So, all about thru hulls today, guys. I have one here in front of me so we can piece it apart and actually talk a little bit about the theory of operation as to what a thru hull is, why we have them on our boat. So as you can see, I'm holding one here in my hands. This is what you'll see typically installed through the hull. It could be under the waterline, and you can have them above the waterline. The reason it's called a thru hull is, of course, because it goes through the hull. So typically here where my fingers are, this will represent the hull of the vessel, and this is installed through that hull, hence the name thru hull. Technically speaking, this particular component is actually the thru hull itself, but in standard kind of colloquial language, we're talking about this entire thing as being the thru hull apparatus, right? So in some countries they call it a skin fitting. That really is the same thing. A skin is like the hull of the vessel, so a skin fitting or a thru hull, same deal. So we take this off and we see that there's a little nut here that tightens down and it holds this in place on the hull. There will be sealant in there to stop any water from getting out. And then the next component is the valve. They're almost always going to be a ball valve. You really don't see any other type of valve. It's going to be one of these. So you have the handle, which opens the hole, or you close it and it closes the hole. So the direction of flow and the opening will always be the handle in line with the actual valve itself, and then to shut it will always be 90 degrees to the direction of flow. I think we have covered that in other videos before. And of course the reason it's called a ball valve is because the part on the inside that's moving and shutting and opening that valve is actually just a ball with a hole in it, okay? And then on top of that valve will be some sort of a barb. In this case, this is a 90-degree barb. Some of them can be a 45, or some of them can be a straight barb. And then onto here, your hose will connect to that. So why do we have these and what are they used for? Well, it really is to let water out or bring water in, depending on the application and what piece of equipment it's hooked up to on the other side. So one example of why you would have one of these to let something out would be a macerator, which empties your holding tank, which is where all the contents of the toilet goes when you flush your toilet. So typically you'll find that these will be shut and you'll need to open them up, and then you'll need, oops, sorry, have this installed the wrong way. This would actually be on this side here. This would be on this side here. So you would have that. So you would have that in the open position, and then you can run your macerator pump and then the fluid can flow out. However, in some applications, like if you have a water maker on your vessel, which is an aftermarket installation, you can use this to pull water in through it and then feed the piece of equipment that needs that water. Okay. Another reason you'd have these are for drains. So scupper drains, for example, can run out through usually above the waterline fittings as well. And there's a few other applications, and we're going to go through the boat and we're going to find out where they all are and what they're all for. Okay, so as promised, we're going to go through the vessel and take a look at some of these thru hulls. All right, so we're on a 37 Axopar right now, and we're going to go through the 37 Axopar specifically. Also note that there is different models with different configurations that have different freshwater setups and things like that. So we're going to go through a boat that may have things that your boat doesn't have, or your boat may have things that this boat doesn't have. Take all this with a grain of salt. Your boat is not going to be identical to this, but for all intents and purposes, they do work very similarly, and you'll find things in similar locations. So to my left, we have a faucet and a sink right here, and this one here goes directly overboard. So the sink, when you run the water, the sink will collect that and it will take it through a hose, and then that hose will actually go right to the outside of the boat, to the hull. There will be a valve right there, and that valve is usually always in the open position. However, you do have the option to close it. There should be no reason to close this particular valve, but in the case where you are trying to drain and your sink keeps filling up, even though the sink drain is open here, you might have a closed thru hull valve over at the skin fitting or the thru hull fitting. So If you go inside this locker right here and you look inside, you will see that there is a sticker that indicates there is a through hull shutoff in there behind the removable plate. There's a circular plate that you unscrew, and if you reach back there, by feel, you can feel that handle, and then you close that handle or open that handle depending on what you want to do. So there's one location for one of the through hull valves. Okay, so as mentioned, we are still on the 37XC Axopar, and also as mentioned, there are different configurations, one of which is the addition or omission of this dividing panel in here. Some of them have a standalone head area, and some of them are a full cabin setup, just like this one. But in either of those configurations, you still will have a hatch right here in the center, and it is going to be accessed by removing the carpet if you have it, and then opening the hatch. Inside there, you'll find another through hull to look at. So let's pull this carpet off camera, and then we'll take a look inside under the floor. Okay, so in keeping with the Axopar standard of what you can expect to see, you'll see another one of these little stickers, just like we saw in this cabin here behind the locker. There was one of those stickers. There's another one right here, and it says waste tank shutoff valve. Okay, so that logo there, if you see that logo with like the kind of two triangles pointing each other with like a little valve on top, that's basically the international schematical way of saying valve, right? So if you see that diagram, you know you're going to find a valve. Under here, we will see that there is a valve right here, and it's actually in the shut configuration right now. And if we open that up, that will allow the overboard discharge pump to discharge fluids from the holding tank into the water. So we're going to open this valve up and show you what it looks like open, and then we're going to close it again to show you what it looks like closed. Okay, so as promised, here is a close-up of the valve. You can see that it is in a closed position, and this is what it looks like when it's opened. This is one that you would leave in the closed position at all times unless you are actively pumping out your holding tank. So there is a pump located elsewhere in the boat, and it pushes fluid this way and then out of the boat. But you do need to make sure it is open first before you do that, or else you'll have a buildup of pressure here, which is not good. So make sure that you open this up before you pump out your holding tank. We do have videos, or we do have many other videos, and one of them is actually specifically talking about that, how to pump out your holding tank. So please look out for that one on the channel as well, and we'll leave a link to it in the description below. But when you're not using it, make sure that is closed up, so it's always in the closed position while you're running your boat. While we're in here, we should also take note that there's a bilge pump in here as well. This bilge pump right here is to catch the water that may build up in the bottom of the bilge. Sometimes water gets into the boat, but that's a whole nother conversation as to why it would be in there. But this little device's job is to pump the water out. So water will go up through the middle of the body of the pump and head this way. There's a hose here, and that hose will actually head to another location on the vessel that'll have another valve for it where it can pump the fluids overboard. That is a valve that you would need to leave in the open position all the time. Okay, so as you can see, we've now moved to a 28 Axopar. Same kind of deal here. The through hulls will be scattered around the place, but in a slightly different location, but all the same rules apply. So come on board and let's take a look at this 28. Okay, so there's a few valves to talk about here in the head, and they're all located to my right-hand side or on the starboard side of the vessel. There's a locker here, and as before, we have all those little stickers on the side to tell us that valves are located in here, and if you want to find them, go to pull the panel and go hunting for them. So let's do that. Okay, so just before we pull this panel, notice that there is a sink in here as well. So much like the 37, all these sinks are above the waterline. They typically actually just eject directly overboard through a through hull fitting with a valve, just like before. So just thought I'd mention that before we open the panel. Here are those stickers I was telling you about. Panel comes out. And then I need to reach in here, and here's one valve, and that one is for the macerator. And then right back here, there's another valve against the wall, and that one there is for the sink. And now that one's shut as well. Okay. So in this particular configuration, I would leave the sink drain always open, and I would leave the macerator valve shut, and then only open it just when you need to overboard or discharge overboard, sorry. Okay, so still on board the Axopar28. This is a wet bar version, so there will be a sink in here which will drain out to here. And inside this locker right here, there will be a access plate. We're going to open that access plate up and we're going to reach in. You can't really see it, you have to go by feel, but there is a valve in there which is actually for the bilge pumps that's located in the center of this bilge right here. So they will go out to there and overboard discharge. I'm going to reach my hand in and I'm going to open and close that right now. Okay, that's in the closed position and that's in the open position. This is one where you'll never actually have to close it unless you've got some sort of a problem, so it's more of a technician thing if it ever needs closing. So all bilge pumps, if you find the through hulls to where they're located, they should always be left in the open position. You always want your boat to be able to pump overboard, always, always. So that's when you want to leave in the open position, unless you have a problem like a burst line or something like that.
Alex, thank you so much for taking us through the boat and showing us where all the through hulls were. And if you like our videos and want to learn more about Axopars, then please remember to like and subscribe to our channel.